In a few hours, indigenes of Anambra State will troop out to decide who will govern their states for the next 4 years. It's also the first major test for INEC under the new leadership of Professor Joash Amukwito. How will the commission fare? And is an end to the saga finally in sight as the Federal High Court in Abuja fixes November 20 for the delivery of judgment in the alleged terrorism case of the leader of IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu. Well, many thanks indeed for joining us on the program, everyone, wherever you're watching from around the world. We are live from our global headquarters here in Lagos, Nigeria. I am Kelly Egiga, sitting in for your regular host, Sheung Okimbaloyi. In a few short hours, the heartbeat of the Southeast will quicken. The streets of Oka, the markets of Onitsha, the fields of Nnewi will all hum with one single rhythm: decision. And some will say it's indeed a big decision to make tomorrow. Anambra stands at the crossroads again. The people, traders, teachers, students, and elders will step out tomorrow, ink-stained thumbs ready, voices ready, and their dreams alive. The big question is, who will become the next governor of Anambra State? Well, we'll get to unpack all of that on the show this hour. Let's get to do you some of our top stories this hours. We'll walk you through some of the live updates and all of that we are hearing. But let's bring you up to speed now. Just a moment ago, as debates over alleged genocide against Christians in Nigeria hits up the polity, President Bola Tinubu has met with the Sultan of Sokoto, His Eminence Saad Abubakar, at the presidential villa. Also in the meeting we hear was the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Abbas Tajuddin. The crux of the meeting is not known as at the time of this report, but earlier in the week, precisely on Tuesday, President Tinubu met with the Catholic Archbishop of the Diocese, Most Reverend Archbishop Ignatius Keigama, at the presidential villa. Although details of the meeting were not made known to the press, it perhaps underpinned the Tinubu-led government stance on promoting religious harmony. Well, recall that U.S. President Mr. Donald Trump had accused the Nigerian government of complicity over alleged genocidal attacks against Christians, threatening to launch a military espionage to wipe out the dreaded Islamist terrorist groups Boko Haram and ISWAP, as well as the bandits operating in the northwest and north-central zones. Well, let's get to turn our attention now to Anambra State as tomorrow's governorship election approaches. The Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, is reassuring Nigerians and Anambra residents that comprehensive security measures are in place ahead of the polls. Well, the IGP also confirmed to newsmen that 2 deputy IGPs, along with other senior police officers, are strategically stationed in Anambra State to oversee and coordinate all security officers deployed for the polls. He's also calling on all eligible voters to exercise their democratic rights and participate in the elections peacefully.
We are fully prepared to provide security for the election in Anambra. We have completed our deployment. 2 DIGs are already on ground, supervising all the security agencies deployed for this election. We have deployed adequately, and I don't expect anything that will come out on Saturday different from what we have done in Edo, in Ondo, and in other places. So I want to assure Nigerians that voters in Anambra should come out to cast their votes. A level playing ground is going to be provided for all the candidates. The Nigerian police does not have a candidate in this election. Our commitment and our loyalty is to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So nothing is going to go wrong in Anambra on Saturday. Everything will go on smoothly.
Well, Nigeria's IGP, Mr. Kayode Egbetoko. Let's get to do you our political roundup stories, and then we'll get back here and head to our very first conversation. Please stay with us.
Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court in Abuja has fixed judgment for November the 20th in the terrorism trial of the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu. Justice Omotosho chose the date on Friday while ruling after Kanu failed to open his defense, having exhausted the 6 days allocated to him by the courts to conduct his defense. The judge said Kanu, having failed to utilize the opportunity granted him to conduct his defense, cannot claim to have been denied the constitutionally granted right to fair hearing. With less than 24 hours to the Anambra governorship election, a coalition of civil society organizations have thrown down the gauntlet to INEC to conduct credible polls in order to improve confidence in the electoral process. Speaking during a briefing in Awka, the state capital, under the Aegis The Situation Room, the South-South coordinator Achike Chude noted that this will be the first major test for Joash Amupiton since his appointment as INEC chairman. He charged the commission to do a good job so as to improve confidence in the process. He further revealed that the Situation Room will be deploying observers to monitor and report back in real time. The People's Democratic Party, led by the acting national chairman, Mr. Abdurrahman Mohammed, has inaugurated a new board of trustees for the party. Speaking during the inauguration ceremony at the FCT minister's official residence in Abuja, Mr. Abdurrahman said the move is to restore true values to the party and gain public trust. He explained that recent developments in the party has set the party off the very principles that formed it. And as such, the Board of Trustees inauguration is not just a ceremony, but a renewal of faith in the ideals that gave birth to the PDP, which he describes as justice, fairness, inclusivity, and respect for the rule of law. A northern Nigeria-based social-cultural group, the Rebuild Arawa Initiative for Development, RAID, has faulted the allegation of Christian genocide in Nigeria by the United States of America's President Donald Trump, arguing that bandits don't consider religion before they kill or kidnap their victims. The Director of Communications and Publicity of the group, Comrade Bitako Abubakar Umar, at a press conference in Abuja, noted that the unfortunate killings in the country are not limited to a particular religion or tribe. A forum, Nigerian Youth Futures Fund, NYFF, and other youth-led organizations and stakeholders have commended the federal government's efforts in ensuring that young Nigerians are given a sense of belonging in the affairs of the country. The groups, however, demanded for more youth-led solutions and strengthening civic participation for national progress. Addressing a press conference on Friday in Abuja as part of activities marking the 2025 National Youth Day, Haruna Godia of Leap Africa said young Nigerians must not only be beneficiaries of policies, but active co-drivers of national progress.
All right, so those are your political roundup stories there for you. This is Politics Today, and our focus is on Anambra State, which we are counting down just a few hours away, where Nigerians residents in Anambra State will head to the polls to decide exactly who will lead them for the next 4 years. And that's our attention tonight, everyone. We'll get to take a look at some of the angles and perspectives to the electoral process, from issues around logistics to security to issues around some of the concerns that has been raised by some election observers. There are issues as regards insecurity in the states, issues as to perhaps voter apathy, which has plagued Nigeria's elections for quite some time now. How will that play out at the polls tomorrow? Just to perhaps do our viewers some sort of reminder and background, only 2.8 million Nigerians in Anambra State registered for the elections, which is set to hold tomorrow. We understand that as of yesterday, the new INEC chairman, Professor Joash Amupiton, disclosed to Nigerians that 98.8% of PVCs have been collected. And he says this perhaps has never happened before. So It's interesting to see how all of this will play out. There are also some concerns as regards inclusion and all of that. As we understand that people living with disabilities in that state, only 3,456 registered for the election. Let's get some perspective this hour as we are joined by the Commissioner of Police, Election, Anambra State, Abayomi Shogunle, who joins us live on the program. CP, thank you indeed for agreeing to talk to us on this very short notice. You were only deployed to Anambra State to head the election duty there by the IGP only 3 days ago. So you have only been on ground in Anambra State, I understand, for just 3 days. What have you seen and what have you observed so far?
Thank you very much. Good evening, and thank you for having me. Well, as you have stated, I've only been in Anambra State for 3 days. But the actual fact is that, in addition to being the CP in charge of the election in Anambra State, I'm also the Commissioner of Police in charge of election planning, monitoring, and evaluation for the whole Federation. And as a matter of fact, we've started the preparation for this Anambra election as far back as March of this year, knowing fully well that it's an off-cycle election. And in August of this year, I was on ground here in Anambra to conduct the by-election. And the by-election in August was used as a litmus test for this exam, for these elections. And certain things were put in place during this by-election, and which worked very well. And we're also planning to repeat those measures that were put in place in August during the by-election. So every adequate planning and preparations needed to be in place has been done. And as a matter of fact, we have even started implementing those plans that we have put in place to ensure that there is a peaceful, free and fair elections in Anambra State come 8th of November.
Well, CP Abayomi, the reports from some election observers is that out of the 21 local government areas in Anambra State, there's still a huge amount of security threat. I'm wondering how you're receiving some of these reports. I'm not sure I can lay my hands on some of the reports now, but that's the concern, the fact that security still remains a major threat when it has to do with elections in Anambra State. I wonder just how prepared you are to curb these issues around insecurity.
As I said earlier on in my opening remarks, we're fully prepared to have this election take place tomorrow. And regarding the high visibility of security presence that has been observed in Anambra State, you know, I told you we've started the preparation for this election for as far back as March of this year, and massive deployment has been made in Anambra. And the reason for this is to kind of being proactive. And we have also taken over all the spaces that some elements that tried or wanted to disrupt the election where they were occupying. Security forces, Nigerian police force, and other security agencies have taken over all those spaces. And maybe that's part of the reasons why we are having massive deployments in Anambra. Right. And I want to tell everyone in Anambra to see that massive deployment as a sign of confidence that they can come out freely to cast their vote without any fear of molestation.
It should be interesting to see. Confirm for us again the number of police officers deployed to Anambra State, 45,000. Is that the number?
No, there was no time we said 35,000.
No, 45.
It's a moving. Yes, that has increased now. That number has increased. I gave those figures Tuesday last week during a meeting at the INEC headquarters. But as a matter of fact, it is not a static figure. That has further increased because now we have other security agencies. They have also forwarded their own deployment. And when we add that to the number of police officers, it has increased greatly. And the reason for that, when you look at the number of polling units in Anambra State, we have over 5,000 polling units. And by the request from INEC, we are expected to have nothing less than 3 uniformed personnel in each of the polling units. So okay.
Yeah, just land on your points before my next question, please.
Okay.
No, go ahead and land on your point before my next question.
Oh, okay. So by the time you look at the number of polling units, over 5,000, and we're deploying nothing less than 3 officers in each of those polling units. Then we have collation centers across the wards. Then we are also having quick intervention units at strategic locations. You know, so by the time you put all these figures together, you see the need for these huge deployments.
So, can I ask you, from your visits to Anambra State, I mean, because I'm happy that you have informed us that you have been in the planning of these elections for quite some time now. So from the police point of view, I mean, we've heard from election observers, but from the police point of view, walk us through some of those flashpoints that the Nigeria Police Force has identified.
Yes, in the last 2 months or 3 months or thereabout, some flashpoints were identified, including Ihiala local government and some other bordering towns with Imo State, some forest in Imo. That was 3 months ago. And we had clearance operations, and those elements that posed threat to this election, some of them were arrested, and some of them have been rounded up. And some of the implements they plan to use were also recovered. So as we speak, all those areas that were identified as flashpoints or areas of interest in the last 2 or 3 months, they are and we're all stakeholders, and elections will go on peacefully without any incidents in those places tomorrow.
Well, CP Shogunle, let's get to do our viewers some sort of perspective to understand just how unique Anambra State is. That state is bordered by about 5 states. It is bordered by Delta to the west, Imo and Rivers to the south, Enugu State to the east, and Kogi to the north. It shares borders with 5 states. And I think that this perhaps is a big concern for you and your team. Is that correct?
Not really. The numbers of bordering states, it's not really a security issue. You know, what's the important indices here are the business activities, commercial activities taking place in a place. You know, those are part of the things that that determines what happens security-wise, crime-wise in an area. And all those put in place, measures have been put in place to address those specific indices that could pose threats. And as I say, in the last 1 month, security has improved generally in the state because of measures, specific targeted measures put in place to address those threats.
All right. So in terms of restriction of movement, we are counting down to 12 a.m. where you'll get to enforce that restriction. Walk us through how you intend to achieve that. I mean, I know it's a regular thing that we get to see in this part of the world whenever we get to observe elections and all of that. But what's the update on that as regards the restriction of movement of residents of Anambra State? Commissioner of Police Abayomi Shogunle, I'm not sure you heard my question correctly, but I was asking you just a moment ago, in terms of restriction of movement, which you understand will take effect at 12 a.m., what's the update on that? How do you intend to enforce that? All right. I'm not sure we're having issues trying to get him back on track with us. Commissioner of Police Abayomi Shogunle, who was deployed to Anambra State 3 days ago by the IGP to head the election duty there in terms of security. We'll see how we can get back to him, and perhaps he gets to speak to this issue of restriction of movement, because it's a major event which occurs for every time Nigerians head to the polls. Well, let's take a breather now. Everyone, we have more perspectives and more live updates for you on the program as we count down to the November 8 governorship elections in Anambra State. And we're asking the big question, who will become the next governor of that state? We're back in just a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program, everyone. This is Politics Today, and we've been speaking with the Commissioner of Police, Anambra State election, CP Abayomi Shogunle, who has been speaking to us just a few hours ahead of the big day right there in Anambra State. CP Shogunle, if you can hear me loud and clear, just before I let you go, I know that this is a busy period for you and your men. So I was just asking a moment ago, in terms of restriction of movement, what's the updates that we have? I know that it's for 12 a.m. What else?
Yes, tomorrow there's going to be total restriction on vehicular movement, which is going to start from 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening. And this restriction affects both intrastate, that is within Anambra State, and interstate movements. So that means anybody traveling to any part of Nigeria that wants to travel through Anambra State should take an alternative route, because the roads in Anambra State will be blocked as from 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening. So meaning even within Anambra State, apart from those that are on essential duties, journalists, press, observers, both foreign and local observers, then people on essential duties, nobody will be allowed to move about with vehicles. And as we know, the reason for this is to further ensure adequate security for this election, so that it will also prevent people who plan to move from one area to go and disrupt, so that they won't be able to move around freely. So in summary, the total restriction affects both interstate and intra-state vehicular movements tomorrow, Saturday.
Well, we look forward to it. CP Abayomi Shogunle, you have been engaging with heads of security. You've been having some sort of security meetings since your arrival there, we understand, but we must leave it here. Thank you indeed for your time on the program. Commissioner of Police in charge of the Anambra State governorship election, CP Abayomi Shogunle, thank you indeed for your time. Hopefully we get to experience a hitch-free elections tomorrow.
Thank you for having me.
All right. This is Politics Today. We'll take another breather now in just a moment. When we come back, we'll get to look at other issues as regards, this time around, perhaps away from security, as we get to look at issues around logistics, around sensitive materials, which we understand INEC, as of yesterday, has been inspecting some of those sensitive materials. We're back in just a moment. Everyone, please stay with us. Welcome back to the program, everyone. Bukola Idowu is the Executive Director, Impact Development Initiatives, OCA. He joins us live now on the program. Thank you indeed, Mr. Idowu, for agreeing to talk to us here on the program. Exactly 16 days after he assumed office, I'm talking about Professor Joash Amukwito, SAN. He said perhaps for the first main test as INEC chairman under his leadership tomorrow, as Nigerians in Anambra will head to the polls. In fact, I was just looking at some of the reactions ahead of the polls, ahead of tomorrow. Perhaps let's begin with that. Do you think this will define his credibility, his performance at the polls in Anambra State tomorrow?
Thank you for having me. I think the new INEC chairman, for me, one of the things I believe is that probably I will just spare him a bit tomorrow, whatever the outcome of the election is, because he is resuming just 16 days to the election, and there is nothing he wants to know. I don't expect any substantial change that is going to make to the election that he did not plan. Don't forget, notice of election was given 1 year ahead, and he came 16 days, which means the former chairman under his leadership has planned the entire election. So he was just coming 16 days, and by the time he was coming in 16 days, I now have like about 14 activities to the election. He's coming at the end where, the activity are left like about 3 to be conducted. So I want to believe that administratively he's going to use this Anambra election to understand a bit more about INEC operations around the election, the feed operation around the election, which I believe he has not had enough feed. I won't even say enough feed operations around the election. Maybe he has never even had any. So I think he's going to use this opportunity to observe this election and then take his note, and we're now going to begin to judge him and then to assess him in the next 3 elections that will be conducted before the general election. And what are these 3 elections? The FCT election, Ekiti election, and Osun election. So, but for Anambra, most of the planning, procurement, administrative, logistics, most of them have been done before he's coming in. So if you ask me, I just expect him to use tomorrow to observe, or this election to observe. But we want to see, we know he's going to be fully in charge with the FCT election, Ekiti and Osun election.
So let's get to look at some other concerns. Specific recent data, the number of people with disabilities in Anambra State, is not readily available, and that's a major concern even for the country as a whole. Anambra State, I understand, ranks 12 nationwide with a 40% disability inclusion score. But out of the 2.8 million Nigerians who registered for PVCs, only 3,456 are people with disabilities. So I wonder perhaps just how concerned are you in terms of these issues around inclusion and for those Nigerians who, of course, are living with disabilities?
So basically, I think this is a systemic challenge when it comes to persons with disability around our election. And this has been worrying. This is one of the issues we have been dealing with, not even from the last off-cycle election. This has been an issue we've been dealing with since 2015 elections. And when you look at number one, these are like I said, it's systemic issues. For instance, when you look at where the polling unit, the environment at which we conduct our election, are they accessible? And when you bring this up to INEC, in all fairness to INEC, INEC don't construct. They use public public institutions like secondary school, open field. They don't construct most of these places. But the challenge is most of these places, are they really accessible to a person with disability? That is number one thing that actually discourage this community from coming to vote. Number two is that you also have to look at INEC preparation towards a person with disability coming out to vote, because you have what I call scarcity of data around them. How accurate is the data we are using now? But even with the data we are using now, there are assistive material for person with disability. Are they readily available in all the polling units where person with disability has been registered? And don't also forget that you cannot say that, oh, I have magnifying glass and then I'm providing for the person with disability, because the community of person with disability varies. There are the people that we need braille ballots, and there are people that we need magnifying glass. There are people that we even need sign language interpreters at that particular place. So it's not something we will do overnight. It is something the moment the notice of election was given 1 year ahead, planning it to go into it in terms of inclusion. For instance, now we expect that planning should also be going into the subsequent election coming in terms of data, in terms of procurement of assisting material, then in terms of, even if possible, how are we going to make the location of our ballot boxes, the polling boxes where they will thumbprint, how are we going to make it accessible to most of these people? For instance, somebody with a wheelchair, and then you have to put the ballot box and the polling booth in an in an elevated area. So these are the issues. So I just, what I'm trying to say now is that if you look at it, this has to be like interagency collaboration. You know, INEC doesn't have construct some of these polling units. They use public office, but there has to be a deliberate implementation of the legislation around person with disability. And I think the law is there with the National Commission of Person with Disability. So we need to begin to look into the implementation so that you now look at it in a long term, in a holistic manner, that even beyond the election, this is highly relevant. For instance, there are some of our commercial banks that person with wheelchair cannot get into their offices. So we need to begin to look at this and then plan ahead.
Mr. Adewu, let's talk voter apathy for just a moment, because if you take a look at Anambra's history books, you will see that there is a slide in voter participation, and which remains worrisome. And let's do the numbers. In 2013, for instance, the turnout was only at 25.5%. In 2017, it dropped further to 20.10%. And the big one happened only 4 years ago in 2021, which hit 10.27%. That's a sharp decline, Mr. Adewu. I wonder what you foresee will happen tomorrow.
So I think when it comes to voter apathy around election, most especially, let me narrow it down to Anambra election. And I keep saying that as of today, when it comes to governorship election in Nigeria, since we returned to democracy in 1999, Anambra is currently holding, I would say, the record of the lowest voter turnout in any governorship election since we returned to democracy in 1999, which is very worrying. The last election was like you just said, at like about 10.3, which is the lowest, and very, very low. But having said that, I also think if you check the data very well, the issue of voter apathy is not only limited to Anambra, but only that Anambra happens to take it into, the situation in Anambra have moved into another dimension. But having said that, when you look at the election tomorrow, there are a lot of factors that will make people to come out and vote tomorrow. Number one is in terms of the security, and I am happy that the guest before me, the man in charge of the election, in terms of the security in the state, has assured about the readiness and the impartiality at which they will conduct the election. They will man the election in terms of professionalism. Now, when citizens have confidence in security agency that they are likely going to protect them, then you are likely going to see higher voter turnout. The big one is the confidence people have in INEC to conduct credible election. Because when people feel that their vote is not going to count, then tell me, they will give themselves reason that why will I not go and queue in the rain, in the sun, when I know my vote is not going to count. So it is not about people coming out to vote. We need to build trust in people. And we need to build that trust. And the first trust we need to build is that our election management body must restore trust, and which is the major thing we expect the new INEC chairman to do. You have to build back the trust into INEC. And then when people now know that, look, when you say you are going to use IREV, they know you are going to use it. When you say you are going to use beavers, they know you are going to use it. When you say you are going to transmit election results from one polling unit to the other, either electronically or move it, they know you are going to do that. So when people are not doubting the integrity of our electoral system, then, or the electoral umpire, then they want to come out and vote. But tomorrow, in the election, we expect, looking at everything, the new INEC chairman, the new leadership of INEC, and then you look at the election security in terms of their preparation and deployment, and then you look at INEC also preparation in terms of deployment of their sensitive material. We expect a higher turnout, more than what we have in the last 2021 election, though marginally, but we still expect that it should be more. And if you have anything less than what we have in 2021, I think we have to declare a state of emergency around voter turnout.
Mr. Damu, in 10 seconds or 15, give me a number. What's your projection? How many percent?
Well, my projection is between 11 and 12% voter turnout. All
right, let's take a breather, Mr. Damu. When we come back, we'll get to wind down on our conversation with you as we take a look at your assessments reports, which you conducted in 2021 and 2025. There are some big concerns. You have mentioned some. And then, of course, we'll get to ask the question, perhaps, just what key leadership questions should the people of Anambra State be asking themselves as they head to the polls in just a few hours away? We're back in just a moment, everyone. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. Everyone will be speaking with Mr. Bukola Idowu, Executive Director, Impact Development Initiatives, OCA. Mr. Idowu, we have to let you go now, but in 60 seconds or less, what key and crucial leadership questions should Nigerians in Anambra State be asking themselves as they head to the polls in just a few hours?
I think the Anambra people need to begin to ask themselves this vital question around leadership, and most especially when it comes to who is going to lead them in this in the next 4 years in the state. And whoever is going to lead them is going to determine a lot of things about the trajectory at which the state will be going in terms of security, the economy, the standard of living, education, and every other thing. So if you ask me, that is the most important decision they will be making. And that is now, they now need to ask themselves, do we just want to sit at home and then allow just anything to go by, or we need to participate? And that is the beauty of election, because it allows you to determine who leads you in the next 4 years, who determine how you live. One of the things people need to understand is that you cannot actually do without government. Government is so important in every aspect of our life. So Anambra people, one of the things we have been saying is that they have another opportunity, which come every 4 years. They have this another opportunity now to choose who is going to lead them. And that is the key decision they will be making tomorrow. And that now calls for all of them to come out en masse. In terms of the number of PVC collected, so I expect a lot of them to come out and vote. Yes.
Executive Director, Kimpax Development Initiatives, Mr. Bukola Idowu, thank you indeed for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, just before we go, let's get to hear from the electoral umpire. Mr. Ken Ukeagu is the Supervising National Commissioner, INEC. He joins us live on the program. Mr. Ken, I mean, we do have 5 minutes or less to have this conversation with you. So, I mean, your boss, who is the new sheriff in town, has only 16 days to just familiarize himself with the happenings of conducting an election in Nigeria. So I'm just wondering perhaps what exactly he would have said to you. But let's see, just before we bring you on board, again, to remind our viewers. All right, I understand we do have Mr. Ken back with us, Ken Ukeagu, National Supervising Commissioner, who has joined us live on the program. Very quickly, I'll just ask him perhaps, what has the new sheriff in town said to you? What's the mandates from the new sheriff in town, the INEC chairman, Professor Joash Amukwito?
Well, the mandate is to go and give Nigerians and Anambra people in particular fair, credible, and inclusive election. And that's what we're going to do tomorrow.
It's always interesting to hear INEC assure Nigerians just before the polls, assure us that we'll not hear anything around technicalities, we'll not hear anything about logistics concerns. There'll be early deployment of materials to the polls. Say that now on national TV for our viewers to see and hear you.
In summary, I can tell you, yes, there will be nothing like that. No glitches, no technical problem. Materials will arrive early. Men will arrive early at the polling units. And we are going to give Anambra people credible election tomorrow.
Well, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but just in case we do get to the point where a governor is not elected, I mean, we know that to elect a governor of a state, a candidate must have the highest number of votes, 25% and 2/3. If that does not work, are you preparing for a runoff?
Yes, we are, as a commission, and it's part of the law. I mean, where no candidate meets the requirement of the law, we'll certainly go for a runoff. That's what we call it, a runoff. So we are ready.
Mr. Ken, we have to go now, but perhaps what's the level of preparations from INEC? And you can also walk us through if there are any major concerns ahead of the polls. We're just counting down. It's a few hours away.
Well, for now, no major concern. The materials are already at the racks. We moved them to the local government area yesterday. They are now being moved to the racks. Most of the racks have been activated. We have the vehicles have been delivered to the racks. And we are set, really. We are set. It's just for us to Tomorrow morning, we'll just move them to the polling unit and wait for Anambra people to come and vote.
Well, we know how geographically Anambra State is blessed and some sort of challenges. There's the riverine area. Hopefully these materials get there in time. Thank you for the assurances. We'll have this conversation again with you after the polls tomorrow. Ken Okeago is the Supervising National Commissioner, Independent National Electoral Commission. Thank you indeed for stopping by our studios.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, that does it for us here on the program. Everyone, all eyes are indeed in Anambra State tomorrow as residents of that state get to cast their vote and determine exactly who leads them for the next 4 years. If you are from Anambra State, this is the chance and opportunity you have been waiting for, and you have to exercise your franchise. That does it for us, everyone. Thank you indeed for watching. I am Kelly Egiga. Good evening.